I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. Andrew Quo. It is several days after Thanksgiving. We talked about it last week a little bit. We talked turkey. We talked tradition. What did you do for the holiday?
Not only did I get leg lengthening surgery, just wait till you see me next, man. The break was incredible. No pun intended. But also, I got weight adjustment therapy. Put on a few pounds this week, man. Ate well. Ate everything. Sweets, savory items, different gravies, different soups. Brooklyn treated me well, man.
Different soups at Thanksgiving, or was this just
the holidays?
Are you just doing like your weekend eating?
Right, because
a
I had a
report here?
couple of Thanksgivings because, you know, my brother was out of town, so we had to do it on an off day. And then the night of, we went to a friend's house. And then a night before, we had a family only one, kind of, you know, whatever. When there's nothing to do, I get to cooking.
Yeah, I had to do a lot of the cooking this year, just due to people's schedules. I'm not going to say I fucked up. I'm going to pass the buck.
Oh, no. What happened?
Did a turkey recipe that called for it to be in the oven for 3.5 to 4 hours. I took it out at about 3 and a little bit. And it was at like 190 degrees already. The turkey tasted good, but it was drier than it was supposed to be. And like, I guess I should have been paying more attention. I just didn't think it would be done in 2.5 hours when it said, you know, cook on 325 or whatever for 4 hours. So,
But
a good carpenter doesn't blame his tools, Andrew. So ultimately, that's on me. I just was not anticipating that it would take 30% shorter time to cook. That one's on Ben. That's on Dietrich. But there are extenuating circumstances.
you're the Tyrese Halliburton of Thanksgiving cooking. At home, you know your oven, you know your own bed, you know your own vibe, your aura in your apartment. You can nail that doneness. Juicy turkey breast. But when you're playing away and it's not your comfy high thread count sheets and it's not your beloved oven that you know like the back of your hand and it's someone else's, your parents' oven. And it's kind of chaotic because they're talking about like, oh, how come you're not giving us grandkids? How come the Knicks suck? How come you're not rich and giving us your money? You can't focus on that bird. You're Halliburton shooting like 4 for 20.
I'm getting out of that twin size bed. My back is aching. My mom is in my ear. How am I expected to cook a turkey in the proper time?
But, you know, as we discussed last week, any dry ass turkey can be saved by a delicious gravy. And you are in the capital, the America's capital of gravy. Did you create one to salvage the bird?
There was gravy indeed, yes. We used some of the drippings from said bird with an existing gravy, souped it up. Yeah, I would say that Rochester is absolutely part of the loaded fries gravy belt, as we've described. Unlike the belt of your own, which has been expanding
Oh my gosh,
over
dude.
the holiday season.
Bro.
This is a
I know.
permanently expanding gravy belt.
I do like
Rochester looking good. Went up there, went to a Rochester Americans game.
what is that?
At first, well,
Is that hockey?
it's the AHL
Rodeo?
team. They are a minor league hockey team that goes up to the Buffalo Sabres, which is the NHL team, if you will.
Shout out to Alexander.
And the crowd's always a little interesting looking. And first got them like, oh, I guess this is the big game for them. You know, everyone's back in town, goes to check out the Americans game. The crowd looked kind of normal. Then I saw like my people, like the real Rochester weirdos come out for Amerks games. It doesn't take a loss for that crowd to turn ugly. Let's just say that.
Oh, so they won, and there was punches being thrown, maybe broken bottles, maybe a scuffle, someone in a headlock.
It's just a funny looking crowd, man.
When you say your people, Ben's people, I find this
Yeah.
to be a wide spectrum, because a lot of times when we roll up together, whether it be a restaurant or an event or a bar, sometimes strangers will be like, "How the fuck are you two guys friends?" But I'm your people. They just don't know,
Absolutely.
right? So when
Like, here's Ben, an Amerks fan, and here's Andrew, a clear non-Amerks fan. How on earth are you two compañeros?
how are you friends with someone with such long legs and short arms? But
He's so tall. How do you guys even converse? I'm like, well, Andrew has to kind of squat and hear my takes.
but when you say your people, and respect to upstate New York, I find probably there's a case where it's maybe in its kind of drug issue era or post. Everyone's in recovery. Like, are we talking about like Buffalo 66 vibe or like good time vibe? Do you know what I'm saying? Like this Buffalo Bills trash.
I'll be honest with you. Growing up, I was never a Buffalo Bills fan, ever. Kind of rooted against them, just because. And they may be returning to the Buffalo 66 era here, where the team is good enough to get people's hopes up, just to crush them at the end. Because people are extremely, extremely into the Bills, upstate New York. So I would say probably a third of the people who go to Bills games are driving from Rochester. Like it is the Buffalo team, but Rochester is firmly part of the fan base. It's not, oh, some people are. It's a huge percentage of the people are coming from Rochester to there. So yeah, they're setting themselves up for yet another heartbreak, in my opinion.
Yeah, because Bills famously lost 3 Super Bowls in a row, one of which in very tragic fashion. So when you say, regardless of the outcome of this minor league hockey game, there will be a grievance filed by the fans.
They won, and I gotta say, I think maybe we won't talk about hoops this episode. I think maybe we want to talk about. No, we'll shift a little bit. Don't put me in the sin bin just yet. But this will mostly be a pod about the Amerks' ascension to 4th in the AHL and how their key victory over the Syracuse Crunch has flip-flopped them in the standings, and I think exposed the Syracuse Crunch as a team that, sure, they can check, they can hit. They're operating at a skill deficiency, Andrew, and that's where the Amerks outclassed them.
Wow.
In their 3-0 victory.
Is the Syracuse Crunch like a farm system for the Rangers, the Islanders, the Devils, anyone from the tri-state area?
There's certainly someone who could tell you that, and that person is not me.
Okay, so what'd you eat there?
But Andrew, I you know what? The game
Doesn't matter.
Pretty uninteresting.
Yeah.
Drank some beer. It was really bland. I want to know though, Andrew. You went to someone else's house for Thanksgiving. Unclear if you actually cooked there, or you were just a special guest,
I was a
cameo
special
at
guest
the meal.
to a wonderful meal.
So I was reading this article, and it's about I want to say it's, what is it, $110, I believe. It's in Bed-Stuy, and you go to this person's house, and they cook you a 9-course Szechuan meal. Would you be into that? Are you open to these novelty dining experiences? You would not be necessarily a guest of honor, as you were for Thanksgiving. You'd be paying for this experience.
Fuck yeah. But I know that the question is loaded because there is
like fries
or scallion pancakes or What are the Chinese
The Italian, you talking about the Italian delicacy?
But it is kind of annoyingly performative in a Gen X way. It feels like the evil or the goody two shoes stepbrother of the cuddle party, where it's just like, oh, I open up my house to strangers and they pay and we become friends and this is a unique experience. Fine with all that, but there is something annoying underlying a potentially really wonderful meal and experience.
I can't tell generationally if that would be Gen X or the millennial vibes. To me, it feels a bit more of the geriatric millennial because, as you said, cuddle party and sort of the imbecile vibe. Like, hey, this is really stupid. Would you enjoy doing it? It's like it's dodgeball
It's
or it's
SantaCon,
this.
flash mob, flash dinner kind of thing.
Yeah, those don't strike me as true Gen X activities, which are more tranquil.
Mm-hmm.
These are try hard by nature, which is more of a millennial quality.
Opposite
Specifically
of
the geriatric.
Yeah. Gen X would be like, I don't feel like smoking. I don't feel like drinking. I'm just going to drive to the Chinese takeout spot and sit in my apartment and eat my food.
Yeah, this is also somewhat tied, at least mentally in my mind, to some of these other dining trends, which are like, it's a restaurant that serves children's food for adults.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're gonna have chicken fingers, except that they're like locally sourced.
It's a dumpster.
We're gonna have tater tots for adults.
Yeah, it's a dumpster that I hosed off that I will serve you a meal that I sourced from various other dumpsters.
Although I will say the dumpster diving does feel kind of Gen X, I gotta say. Out of those, they're a little bit different.
Like crusty punks.
Yeah, it feels more tied to like anarchists and what was the book about the monkey wrench gang? Feels very tied into that ideology, which doesn't strike me.
Shout out to Comet Bus, Pinhead Gunpowder. Yeah, I mean, yes, but then charging people for it and serving nice wine is deeply millennial.
Yeah, that's probably true as well. But so you were saying, despite the trap that I laid for you, you would
Fuck yeah.
go to this.
Well,
so you're gonna go to someone's house. You're gonna sit in their kitchen or their one bedroom. You're gonna eat over their sink.
Fuck yeah. I mean, this is a tradition in China where like there'll be dumpling spots like in a auntie's apartment, and when they're not people sitting there devouring delicious morsels of food, they live in it. They bring out the couch, the TV. The bathroom you use is the bathroom they shower in, and I like that because if we talk about restaurants and it being an amalgamation of a vibe, a service, music, neighborhood, food. I like when food takes precedence too, because then my first question is like, well, I don't want to go to someone's apartment to eat food, but what kind of food are we talking about? And if it's of the Asian variety, fuck yeah, I'm going. But if you told me it was like French, it's Christmas all year round on this sink, I'd be like, that sounds wonderful. I'll pass.
Some conflicting thoughts on this, Andrew. On one hand, we've been discussing the runaway success of Chrissy's Pizza, which of course has a similar origin story to this. Guy during the pandemic starts cooking pizza, becomes a viral sensation. Now he has a brick and mortar. So in some ways, that would be the natural progression of this phenomenon we're describing. The Bed-Stuy, Szechuan, 2-bedroom apartment pop-up. That, some press gets written about it. People give it rave reviews. They love it. It's a little unorthodox, but the food's extremely good.
It's a content game.
And then eventually,
not a food game.
And then eventually, he opens a regular restaurant in Bed-Stuy.
I hope so. Yeah, but to your point, it is it is an equation about social media, Instagram, press, and people buzzing about it, as opposed to like he makes the best dumplings or they make the best dumplings.
Right. But that component has to be included. That, as we always talk about, it's the exclusivity, it's the authenticity, but it has to be good.
Mhm.
Because it doesn't have to be the best, it just has to be pretty good.
Yeah.
Because then the demand for going there, or the reason for going there, is no longer just that it's in an apartment. Because people are like, yeah, so fucking what? No, you have to go. It's in an apartment. Yeah. And no, it's really good. Oh, now
Yeah.
I get it. You have to do this experience in order to get this food. And that's the criteria. That would be your bar to entry.
And
The bar for entry is you have to walk.
Yeah. $100 is
It's not that expensive. You got to walk into this guy's house. You got to sit around some strangers. It's a little weird, but you get the 9-course tasting menu for $110.
Yeah.
And it's good. It's good.
And it's not. It's a
whatever.
different experience, and you can post IG stories about it. You're in someone's house. You get to know the chef. And when I say $100 is nothing, it's a lot of money for a meal. But if you were somebody sourcing nice food, cooking all day, and having people come to your house, 12 people only nets you like less than $1,500. Like that is not a way to make money. To your point, the way to make money is, oh, an investor heard about this, and I'll throw down like 200K for you to open up a little 5-seat cafe in Bed-Stuy.
Well, I also think not only do people do stuff for the gram, as you're describing, I kind of think, yes, getting the image is important, but in this case, it's also the story.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, I went to do that. I heard about that. How was it? Oh, it's amazing. Oh, you got to do something that now, when you're having drinks with a coworker, when you are on a date, when you are talking to a friend, you did something interesting over the last week. I heard about that thing. It was in New York Magazine. Yeah, I heard about that. How was it?
I watch vlogs of people who like wander the streets of different neighborhoods. It's like, oh, Nolita, I'm going into Amy Leon Dore. You know, it's like, oh, it's Prince Street Pizza. I have friends who just scour New York Magazine, like what we love about New York, and then they just do them one after the other. It's like, well, Tatiana is in Lincoln Square, and it's one of the best restaurants, so I have a reservation 2 months out because it is. It has been confirmed by the gatekeepers that you do it, you know, and then you could be like, oh, I ate at Tatiana. A lot of things happening in this discussion about this Airbnb eat. It's like, on one hand, to your point, it's a kind of New York lifestyle, where it's like, well, we used to do SantaCon and that's not cool anymore, so now we're doing this and we can tell our friends about it. And another part of it, the story thing, got me, when you mentioned that, got me thinking, because I'm watching the new season of Chef's Table. I love that show. The tone is a bit cringe at this point, but
Why is that?
it's emotionally overwrought. Everyone tragically, and shout out to other people who have lost their parents and been broke or had to commit crimes to get their first shot at being a legitimate contributor to society as a chef, you know? And I'm like, oh, I'm so
I had to
bored
let
of it.
strangers into my home and serve them mapo tofu for a meager $1,500 a night.
And this is where some people understand that if you don't have a story, you're at a disadvantage. Because you can't just be a good cook anymore to be like, oh, we met in our boring office job and we fell in love over our love of food, so we decided to just wing it and do a pop-up, and that pop-up became viral, and then we had people in our apartment, and that apartment turned into a restaurant that you cannot get into. Welcome to Chef's Table. Classical music plays, you know? And I think like the last vestiges of food as its own content was like the BA Kitchen, maybe Allison Roman, shout out to that god. But that kind of like that Molly Baz kind of era came to an end, I think, a little bit. And now I don't know what's going to happen politically as Trump enters his second term, but we have been dealing with like the stories behind the food, right? The food tells a story. I kind of hate that idea always. Like the food should tell the story. Is it good or not? But I don't think. I think this conversation is about people capitalizing on certain interesting trends if they're good at it, but a trend that may be coming to its own head.
Look, I watch Kenji because I want to know the story behind the pepperoni rolls at the fisherman's schooner's wharf somewhere outside of Seattle. I want to know how his friend Bob came up with said pepperoni roll. And I want that to be digestible, no pun intended, in a 2-minute Instagram reel.
I want to know the best New York slice in Seattle, Washington. And then I would like
the
to
teriyaki slice.
Yeah.
Is incredible.
Ben, I'll tell you, it's sweet, but it's teriyaki. It's like, but you're not watching Kenji. You're watching the ghost of Kenji wandering through the Elysian fields of teriyaki, right? You got the river Styx right there.
Is Kenji's thing his whole shtick now? His sobriety? Is this about the afterlife?
He's not in heaven, but he's not in hell. He's collecting money. He's trying to get that coin to pay the boatman for a journey to his true destiny. But before that, he's got to sample every teriyaki restaurant in Seattle, Washington.
I was talking with someone in nightlife recently, and they said, there are times when I've quit drinking, especially it's like, say I'm, dating a girl who doesn't drink. All right, I'll give it a whirl. I'll try sobriety. And this person is not currently sober. And they're like, I do it for a little while, and then I start feeling like a ghost. Like this isn't me. This isn't who I am. This is a husk of the person that I was. Is this what we're seeing from the king of teriyaki?
I feel like everybody has 3 Hall of Fame careers. Like LeBron James. You have your Cavaliers Hall of Fame career, your first one. And then you take your talents to sobriety, which is your second phase. And
South Beach, famously,
right,
a place for sobriety. Mm-hmm. Yes, go on.
And then your third act, whatever that may be, in Kenji's case, Kenji still might be in his second Heatles Hall of Fame era of his life. But, there's rumors about why he's doing this. He seems...
All the scary teriyaki?
There's rumors, and we don't want to speculate about someone's life, but it seems like he got a separation from his wife. Perhaps he moved to a houseboat, which is an amazing Van Houten move. I sleep in a houseboat, don't you? So his third act is coming. His Hall of Fame. Well, God damn it, does LeBron have 4 Hall of Fame careers? Because LA would be the 4th, right? He won a championship.
I think in this case, and then we're going to get back to non-basketball.
Sorry.
Unless we're going to talk about the Rochester Americans and their 4th place arrival. I think you can put LeBron's Cleveland careers together. That the coda was coming back to win a title. That was not, in fact, a third Cavalier career. It definitely was time-wise, but that was the actual end of the Hall of Fame Cleveland career.
It's held together.
He just escaped to have a different Hall of Fame career, then came back to finish that Hall of Fame career.
It's like having leftover teriyakis bound together by a starchy, glistening, sweet gravy.
He had the fries. He came back and loaded them.
Is the gravy belt Rochester, Cleveland, Miami, Cleveland, LA? Is that America's gravy belt?
Ever expanding.
yeah, that's right. All of America.
Punch another hole. Punch another hole in the gravy belt, sir.
So, motherfucker, you're not paying $100 to go, even if you've read the articles about loneliness and you don't want to play pickleball and it's hard to meet friends and you had $100 and an empty stomach, you wouldn't go to this apartment and try to like meet someone who was also looking for this same experience?
Well, I've got a counter question for you.
Oh my God, a question answered by a question. Let's go.
Are you more likely to go to this for $110 or free?
$110.
I thought you might say that.
A painting is not
Snob.
interesting when it's $1,000. It becomes really interesting when it's $100,000. Same painting.
That's what I'm saying.
Banana.
Like, hey, Andrew, I'm gonna have like 9 strangers to my house. I'm cooking all day. I'm cooking 9 courses. There's gonna be nine other people, 10 other people you've never met, but we're gonna jam you into my living room. You want to come by?
Maybe for 1,000.
All right. If you give me
Right.
$2,000,
Give you
are you now
$1,000.
intrigued by this?
Right. But yeah, maybe they're
Are
getting
other people giving you that? No.
they're
just
getting
you.
the economics wrong because it has to be more expensive. There has to be a fuck you element here to kind of draw the curiosity out of this broth, out of the sense of food in this above the sink. Like $100 is in the no man's land. It's like a Julius Randle contract. If it was more, it'd be more interesting. If it was less, it'd be more interesting. But in the middle,
Right. I agree.
yeah,
It's $22. Like,
Yeah,
whoa.
yeah.
Okay. All right. That's
9
really
courses.
interesting.
Show me these.
It's 400. It's $400.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, steep, but like, it is in someone's apartment. I mean,
yeah.
wow.
It does smell like laundry up in here.
Oof. We are using their regular bathroom. That's nice.
Is it illegal?
It's kind of attached to the kitchen.
Can you do this? Probably not, right? Like you need some sort of health code license to do this. So, my friend used to throw dinner parties. She used to work at a cheese shop, and she'd be like, "Hey, on Saturday, come through. I have 20 seats. They go fast. So let me know if you want to come. The minute I announce it, it all goes through." And she's like, "Please don't tell anybody because I could get in trouble from my landlord who might be scared of a ticket." And I'm like, "Oh, I like breaking the law. This sounds interesting." And that was her draw, being like, "Hey, I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to do a bid for serving you delicious charcuterie. So if you want to risk your freedom, come to my house for $200."
I want to talk about people who have avoided jail sentences in a second. But the final part.
I'm trying.
No, it was great. It was great. I wanted to load up the final loading of the fries.
Right.
The full load, as Paul Pierce
Jesus.
would phrase it. You mentioned the New York Magazine, and there, I guess it's 38 reasons or 39 reasons to love the city. And as you described, there are people who faithfully go through this. Like, okay, what can I experience? What am I missing? What's been happening in this city that I have not been privy to because I've been working my job, nose to the grindstone. New York Mag, illuminate me. Tell me what are the 39 reasons. So I started going through it. Didn't make it all the way through. It required a lot of reading. It's like, because Saturday Night Live is how we talk with America.
Oh my fucking God. Okay, keep on going.
I didn't even read that one.
Right.
Then they talked about how, the threat of prison, which you alluded to, is making Eric Adams actually do his job. They gave an example. They gave 4 examples, and it was a long-stalled plan to curb traffic on McGinnis Boulevard. The MTA began to ticket cars blocking bus lanes. The city is moving forward to build 40 miles of protected paths for pedestrians and cyclists. Like, wait, all these examples are just for bicyclists? That's how we're judging our mayors? How well they take care of the cycling community? All right. And then so many of these other ones were just like the pizza box thing in parks, the Bed-Stuy goldfish, the Timothy Chalamet contest. Like, these aren't reasons to love the city. These were viral things that no longer exist. You know what's a reason to love New York? That goldfish pond that went viral for a second and is no longer there because it got paved over. That's a reason to love New York.
Yeah, I walk by that thing almost every weekend. That was not a reason to love New York. But it was also really weird until the theater kids got their grubby mitts on it. Without, I love what New York Magazine does, and they're baiting us, man. We don't want to fall for this Hunter Biden laptop bullshit. They know this would enrage people and create discourse. Yes or no? If they're like, SNL is the beacon, the lighthouse of reason in our society through laughter, would be like, this will make people mad, right?
I mean, that's true. I mean, look, I found they did sports pretty well because it was a good sports year for New York City. Talked about Juan Soto, talked about Francisco Lindor, talked about Sabrina, talked about Brunson, talked about the Liberty winning a title. Those are legitimate reasons to say, hey, this is part of the civic culture.
Not interesting, though. Not controversial.
Not controversial.
Corporate.
I just found taking little viral things and saying, these are reasons to like New York.
I mean, yeah, what if it was like, you don't have to, you can jump a turnstile. You can serve food illegally over your own sink. You can create a pizza empire while being a horribly depressed, aging, hardcore day one.
I mean, they did include Time Again. But that one's legit.
But
That was
also,
the thing.
there's some danger to Time Again, right? Because most of the hang is an illegal thing.
Yes, this is true. But yeah, I found like there was some good stuff on there, stuff we appreciate.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of the list was like, remember how that thing went viral? Yeah, that's a reason to love New York.
Right.
Like, I don't know, man. I'm with you. Here's a reason to love New York. Hop the turnstile if you feel like it.
Yeah.
That is a good reason to love New York. Yeah, if you really don't feel like paying for public transportation, if you're a little, light in the wallet, yeah, just hop it. It's cool.
Every
No worries.
square foot.
You want to smoke a cig? You want to smoke a cig on the subway?
Yeah.
Go for it. You can.
Every
No one's gonna
square
stop you.
foot below 14th Street is a bathroom. Just piss anywhere. It's cool. You don't have to go inside
There-
a closed door.
No, it's great. You pee wherever you want.
It's like gender debates about bathrooms. The entire area of Chat Square is a bathroom.
I mean, yeah, it's kind of fucked up that they didn't have Chat Square in there.
They will next year after it goes viral for being a bathroom. But yeah, it should be like you can dine and dash, because good luck chasing someone down on 7th Street. Or you could be like, you can start your own weed shop and for 2 weeks make a ton of money and get shut down.
One of the reasons they said that Eric Adams is doing his job, which is, I guess, a reason to love New York, yeah, beyond all of his bike lane initiatives, was that he's cracking down on the sex trade on Roosevelt Avenue. They should have also had like
You
reasons
could
to love
be
New
a
York,
sex
the
worker.
sex trade
Yeah.
on Roosevelt Avenue. It's great over there. It's like the most fun street in New York.
Yeah, or they should be like, you can be someone who probably should be in jail and hated by your peers and mayor of New York City. That's a reason to love this place. Do you sub?
So many reasons.
Are you a cop? Are you a corrupt cop? You can be mayor.
You can do that. We've talked a little bit about justice this episode. In other news, your boy, Hunter Biden,
Oh, I thought you were.
has been given...
Are you going to go hunter or sex work? But they kind of.
They're not unrelated
Yeah.
from the prevailing trade winds of sex crimes, Roosevelt Avenue, Hunter Biden, justice prevailing.
No sex crimes.
The,
Oh, maybe.
no sex crimes,
Prostitution is a crime. Right.
technically speaking.
All right.
A victimless crime, perhaps. But anyway, we got Joe Biden, the president of the United States. Maybe you've heard of him, Sleepy Joe, Genocide Joe. He's got a lot of names. His son, this Hunter fellow, is now free of free of everything. He got like a
pardon.
crazy pardon.
Yeah. Well, he was.
But it wasn't like a little pardon. It was like, it's like he's pardoned for the crimes that haven't come out yet.
Yeah. So the rumors, if I got this right, partied with prostitutes, guns, possession of a gun for like 11 days illegally, something weird like that. Um, drug usage, maybe drug dealing. Laptop maybe has ties to espionage and possibly some selling of American information to the Russians, which has not been uncovered or proved yet, but that is what we were meant to believe.
So one of my buddies, while working, was driving trucks for news agencies. This included Fox. And they went to pick up this guy. And he said his name. I can't remember who it was. I'm not protecting anyone. I just literally don't remember.
Bunter Hayden.
No, this was a Republican they were picking up. Mm-hmm. Now, whether he was officially part of the party, he was not an elected official. Or he's a donor, media person, I forget. My buddy's there, and it's taking a little while, so he comes inside, I don't know, a glass of water or whatever. The guy's like, "Hey, do you want to see Hunter Biden's laptop?" He's like, "I have it." He brought it out. He's like, this is it. This is Hunter Biden's laptop. My buddy's just the driver there. It's like, all right.
It's like when your friend produced a Yao Ming wine. You're just like, damn, there it is.
There it is. All that talk about the laptop.
There was nothing in it.
Was it there? It's like,
there was
this is it.
Pictures of his dong, right?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of dong shots.
It was a schlong drive.
But yeah, he was there. Some Republican guy had it. He's like, this is it.
Yeah.
He's like, cool. Looks like most laptops.
What's your take on the pardon?
Well, I don't think there's that many sane people who really want Hunter Biden to go to prison for like 15, 16 years or whatever. I don't think it's about Hunter Biden serving hard time in general. There are certainly people who would get a sense of joy or pleasure from seeing Hunter Biden go to prison and the knowledge that he was locked up. There are people who would enjoy that. I mean, if you look at, you look at both sides of the political spectrum here. There is an infatuation with seeing your rivals go to prison. Whether that's Trump and his fans chanting "lock her up" about Hillary, or it's Mueller is coming for Trump on the other side.
Right.
Everyone just wants to see the power of the state, the iron fist, crush their opposition and put them behind bars. And this is just the fishhook theory in a nutshell. The moderates and the right wing, their goal is crush our opponents with jails, put them under the jail. Mm-hmm. So anyway, there are definitely people who would like to see him in prison, but I don't think anyone believes the world would be a safer place if Hunter Biden was off these streets. Like, oh, he's off of Roosevelt Avenue. We're all safe.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, Joe Biden pardoned his son for committing crimes that were related to him being Joe Biden's son after Joe Biden said that I'm not going to pardon my son. There is some hypocrisy there, of course. There is some corruption there, of course. So I don't really want to see Hunter Biden go to prison. I think Hunter Biden's just a kind of funny, druggy character who, was trying to use his dad's success as a way to make some money to fuel his drug and prostitute habit. Seems chill. Got no problem with him. Those dong shots need financing.
Yeah.
But that said, it's also not great. It's not a great look when the president pardons their son for crimes that were committed because of the president's son.
Liberals love to moralize things, right? And like when this news came out yesterday, my Twitter feed was weird, but the people who are still real on there, liberals, were just like, we have to hold these positions of power with the standards and ethical standards that we want Donald Trump to behave in. So there cannot be hypocrisy. There cannot be a situation where we let morality slip through our fingers as a society. And my reaction to this was bullshit. Like, who the fuck cares? Hunter Biden was a straw man. Everyone knew it. There was the whole joke with Hunter Biden. There was no here nor there about anything. They couldn't prove anything. So they kind of ran him through. And I'm like, it's his son. He's going to let him go. Not great, but who cares? The list of people Trump pardoned at the end of his term, hilarious, right? And maybe actually spies. Like, Michael Flynn is a free man, which is crazy because people knew of him as a spy before Trump's first term. And he lets him off the hook. Jared Kushner's father commits actual crimes, pardons him. Now he's in the White House. So, like, none of this stuff is good, to your point.
I mean, Bill Clinton did some crazy shit too.
They all do. This is just power, right? And, like, there's been a lot of debates about why things ended up the way they did. And it turns out, like, the popular vote looks better for Harris, when all the numbers are in. But one of the things I always think about is, like, when this Hunter Biden thing drops, hilarious stuff, room for jokes, room for healthy skepticism, being like, it's the way it kind of goes. And he's like a comedic content goldmine. It's always back to, like, this hypocrisy cannot stand. I'm like, people hate people who talk about morality. It's like, you're racist because you're white. It's like, yeah, okay, we're not going to vote for Democrats this time. You guys are just, like, way too annoying. And whatever. It was a cacophony of reasons why we're here. But this Hunter Biden thing, I'm like, oh, can someone just make a joke about this? Because, like, it's nothing.
Well, yeah, that's my thing. Is like, in the list of grievances I have against Joe Biden and his moral failings, this does not go to the top of the list.
It's not even,
like, I mean,
it was a trap set by MAGA. Arguing about it is the trap.
Yeah, I mean, again, I have no desire to see Hunter Biden locked up. I just don't care.
He's awesome
in that way.
seeming. Unless you sold secrets to the Russians, then we could talk about Trump's whole thing, right?
Right. Yeah. I just mean, there are reasons, valid reasons, to be upset about Joe Biden. What's interesting is, without even getting into like a Ukraine-Russia conversation, is that people whose perspective is from the left, which would be more where I am, versus the right, there are places where these opinions, come together, which is like, yeah, Joe Biden, pardoning his son, that's not that chill. Or, like, say, supporting Ukraine with long-range missiles and so forth and prolonging this war. Right wing doesn't like it, left wing doesn't like it, but it's like a centrist Joe Biden position. Overall, though, I find it strange when people...
Do you think providing Ukraine with support is prolonging a war? They got invaded, right?
Oh, I just mean, we don't care about Ukraine in this. We care about trying to break Russia's economy and Ukraine being a thorn in Putin's side. Like, the idea that Ukraine is going to win, like, it's just not the case. We could have had a peace arrangement years ago.
See, the ruble is
there's so much
crashing.
Oh, I mean, this was their plan, and it has been effective in messing up the Russian economy. And if it continued for a while longer, it may have effectively done so. But that was the goal. It wasn't that we care about Ukraine and we put the flags up and we did all the rhetoric about how Putin's going to go into Finland next and he's going to go into Poland. It's like,
that's some apartment.
This was about,
shit.
This was about the Democratic Party, the centrists, wanting to ruin the Russian economy to try to create regime change, or if nothing else, just be a massive irritation so Putin can, expand his sphere of influence in the region further, whatever. I just mean that was something that the centrists believed was really important. I would not say people on the left or the far right have the same interest in attacking Russia, but for very different reasons.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about Russian as a classic enemy, or oil in the Middle East, and the root of, like, yeah, we talk about like art theory and art history, but what we really want to talk about is resale money. So when we talk about these conflicts, we're talking about the USA economy, right? Like, protecting the systems in play in the United States, as opposed to like the freedom of a country or the justice of war. Um, so that's certainly a conversation. Um, I don't think anyone's happy with Ukraine. I think everyone's super annoyed at it, not only because of the money the U.S. is sending over there, it's because the people who are trying to get power in America benefit from creating argumentative chaos with Hunter Biden, with Zelensky, with Putin, and that chaos just works for them more than clarity. Just simple. So Hunter Biden was a really useful tool because he's, to all extensive purposes, he's kind of like a likable guy, right? Like, he has these vices that are very relatable. And especially as a Nepo baby, it's just like, well, he needs maybe money to do shit that is destroying him, like drugs and alcohol, and um, a lifestyle that is not becoming of an American family, a great American family. It's like deeply relatable dude, and to create chaos around that was amazing. And I didn't think it would be successful. But then seeing all these centrists and liberals being mad at it, the pardon, I'm just like, oh, it did fucking work. How was that possible? You guys actually
I
moralize this.
Just for clarity purposes, when you say centrist and liberals, you're talking about the same group.
People who are upset that Biden pardoned his son.
Well, I don't know what centrists are going with here, because centrists usually don't care. So I'm just saying centrists just side with the party. So if Joe Biden pardoned his son, they're probably like, this is cool. And like Eric Holder comes out and is like, yeah, he should have been pardoned. This was a joke. And again, I haven't followed enough of his trial to even have a perspective on that. I've seen more criticism, obviously, from the right and from the left. The centrists, and which we would call like a liberal in this situation, they seem kind of fine with it.
Not on my feed. The only people who seem fine with it are like two of our funny friends. Everybody on my feed is like, listen, we can't do this. Like, this is not right. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah, I just viewed it as more like, all right, yeah, he's a liar, but like, sure.
He's in the business of lying. He's a politician.
Yeah, no, I'm saying I have my griefs with Joe Biden, and this is not anywhere near the top of the list.
No, and this is funny. I'm like, it's his fucking son. No shit. Jared Kushner got $2 billion. Like, if we're trying to locate the swamp, it's everywhere. We are the swamp. I want to get a tattoo, like Lil Wayne. But can Kodak Black go to jail still? Because you get pardoned only up until the point of your pardon, and then if you commit a crime, it's not like Double Jeopardy, starring Ashley Judd. Kodak Black can't partake in illegal activity and be pardoned from that, right?
No, you can't get pardoned for future crimes, but you can get pardoned for crimes that you have committed that people don't know about and you haven't been charged with yet.
Okay.
So my understanding of the Hunter Biden pardon was that he was pardoned for basically like all crimes against the United States of America from 2014 up until now.
Good.
Like,
fuck it.
Literally anything that occurred during that 10-year window, he's in the clear. It's like, turns out he killed a man in Reno. Well, as long as he didn't do it outside of that 10-year window.
Hunter, are you serving 9-course meals in your fucking living room?
Did you jump a turnstile? That's why I love New York.
Did you become mayor of New York? What a lovely place. I mean, shit. I hope we get more Hunter Biden content, though. I hope he becomes his own star. Like, can we get a reality show is a bit played at this point, but can he be a streamer? Can he pull in $4 million a month?
I mean, now he's got to keep his nose clean, though. No pun intended.
Well, what if he keeps his nose clean but his dong out and rakes in $54 million a year?
I like that. That seems like a better plan for him. But I want to stick on the legal eagle topic here for a second. Being that we are experts on pop culture, entertainment, and
The law.
the
The law.
litigious,
We're
the law. We are above the law. Let's just be clear.
right.
So your guy Drake, was defeated in a rap battle. He went into the cipher with Kendrick Lamar, and Kendrick came out on top.
Unlike Cameron, he was defeated.
And after this loss, Drake says, "Wait a minute. Wait 1 minute. It turns out that Universal Music Group had their thumb on the scale, Andrew." That's what he's saying. And he wants to take him to court. When Drake announced that he was, in fact, going to initiate lawsuits against Universal Music Group, he was laughed at. People said, "Wow, this is the biggest L a rapper's ever taken.
Cringe.
You lose this rap battle, and then you say, 'I'm taking you to court.'"
Tattletale.
I don't think you
Meh.
feel that way, Andrew.
He's awesome. Okay, Drake's reign has gone on for a very long time. I don't think I want another viral classic Hotline Bling moment from Drake ever again, right? We've had a decade plus with him. He's beaten Beatles charting records, whatever. The GOAT, one of the GOATs. I love it when people get catty. And not only do I love it when people get catty, I love it when someone is mad, has unlimited resources concerning money, and scratches at something we've all kind of thought about for generations, which is the music industry is corrupt and weird, and we're kind of force fed these artists, these Grammy winning artists, stadium tours, not because we love them, but because they were manufactured by the deep music state.
Someone had a take about Taylor Swift, and I don't know how broadly they had
I like Taylor Swift.
thought this. They had thought this out,
Yeah.
but like Taylor Swift's success was kind of maybe it was initiated because Kanye was rude to her, and that she was guaranteed. I mean, this was not something that I think someone was saying. This is 100% true. I feel like this is how they felt, that everyone rallied, like white society, white women, everyone rallied around Taylor Swift after Kanye, kind of tried to embarrass her at an award show, and that all of this afterwards, the idea that she is the biggest star in the world, is kind of just a fuck you to black people. This is an idea. I'm not saying I believe in it. I like this concept though, right? That like
I'm with it.
Taylor Swift as one of the biggest stars of all time was just like spurred by Kanye saying she didn't deserve an award. And it was like, oh, it's not only that she deserves this award, we're going to make her the biggest star on the planet just because you doubted Taylor Swift. I'm not saying I buy this, but I like the thought process that got here. So when I think about, Drake and Kendrick and the levers of the current music industry, I want this lawsuit to bring them out. I feel like we understood more about the intricacies of the music industry and how stars were made pre-digital era. We understood that here's a bag of money and it's going to be in a hotel lobby and you're going to come pick it up. And then you're going to play this song on the radio on Hot 97, or you're going to play this at the strip club. You're going to play this at Magic City. You're going to put this on World Star. And like, look, RIP to Q from World Star. I was with him when we were going around, and he was picking up bags that had like $10,000 in them.
Mhm.
And we were picking them up literally from hotel lobbies. Like, hey, go over here. There's a bag for you. And you're going to play this video, and you're going to fake generate 50 million views over the next 3 days. It's going to be on the front page of World Star. I was there. I saw it.
Mhm.
Literally picking up just bags of money. I feel like we knew a little bit more about those things. I want this lawsuit to occur because I want to know. I want to know, how are they manipulating the charts? How are they manipulating the streams? Because when you think about it, like, wait, none of this is fucking real. If someone just says, hey, dude, all right, we'll pay you, here's $500K. Can you just say he had 300 million? Yeah, sure. How long will that take? Oh, 10 seconds? I'm just going to retype in a new number. Okay, cool.
The artificial bounce an album gets after winning Album of the Year is huge. And, the Grammy process, all that. I worked in the record biz as a young man in an artwork capacity, but we were given orders by major label executives to say, there's going to be a big push for this artist. So we have 4 singles, we have various versions of the album available, and you guys in the art department need to come up with assets for that. And what I quickly found out was albums are expensive, right? Whether you got a Rick Rubin snoring in the corner, or you have the producer of the moment who's expensive, or you have guests. And this was the era of the where one cameo from Jay-Z could float a single and float a whole album, a CD. And certain things had to be guaranteed at that point, which is it's going to debut on TRL, Total Request Live. They will talk about it for at least the summer, and we will, at the very least, recoup a lot of our costs. At the very most, create a legendary superstar that we will love forever. The music, good enough. Doesn't really matter. And watching TRL, I'm dating myself, but TRL was such an influential show where people would request and rank songs and artists. It'd be like, number 1 for the 14th week in a row is Eminem Slim Shady, And is that manufactured? They didn't have to prove anything, but everyone kind of assumed that it was not good to have an unpopular artist headlining Total Request Live.
Yeah, these are all the kind of scandals that have gone back throughout the history of radio.
The Beatles.
But like literal payola. Mm-hmm. That's what the word is.
Casey Kasem.
This goes back forever. Mm-hmm. But I do want to know what's going on right now. And I don't know, there's again, let's open the Pandora's box of all these ridiculous theories. Yeah. I want to see, I want the paperwork. Let's get it out there. Let's get disclosure. Open these up and let's see what's in this. What if Drake is confident enough because he knows how the system works, because he has gamed it and rigged it himself for the past 15 years or whatever it is. You wouldn't do this unless you were pretty sure.
Well,
now,
the detail, sorry to interrupt you. The specific detail was he accused Siri of programming itself. So when whoever wants to request, what is it, Loverboy?
Certified Lover. Certified Lover Boy.
Certified Lover Boy. It would trigger Kendrick's diss of him, which is Certified Pedophile. So if you weren't like, Siri, play Certified Lover Boy, it would go right to the Kendrick song. And he was like, all right, fuck it. That makes me mad. I'm going to take down this whole thing, to your point, knowing the shit I know.
That's why I'm interested. And it spurred conspiratorial theories. One was that he signed the ceasefire. No, it was the only rapper to do so, or the only well-known rapper to do so. And Universal Music Group is owned by very pro-Zionist people, and they were like, all right, we're going to now take you down for what you've done, and we're going to enlist the Black Israelite Kendrick to do it. Again, theories. I'm not saying I believe it, but let's get all the paperwork out there. Let's see if Kendrick is the El Nusra front of rappers.
Mm-hmm. And Drake has silly money. So, like, that's what it takes. Like, Pearl Jam didn't have enough money to continue their lawsuit against Ticketmaster. Drake, petty enough, maybe on the downside of his career enough, and his feelings, and mad enough to make this happen, man.
Right, because you wouldn't do this without at least some degree of confidence.
I agree.
But also, you wouldn't do it unless you were desperate. If you look at this and say, I don't know, my career might actually be over.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
This
I'm
might
upset.
have ended it.
Or as you said, this might be a big deal for me. This feels bad
Mm-hmm.
that people put in my album and they're going to this certified pedophile song. This
That's not good.
This sucks. Yeah. I got to say, this is a bad look.
This is a bad business development for my brand. For Drake Incorporated.
So when you type in Cookies Hoops, it goes to what now?
A children's clothing line. What?
A weed company.
Oh, Toll House. God damn it. Yeah, I love it. Maybe the theme of this show is justice, because sometimes you got to take justice into your own hands, Ben. Sometimes you got to say, who's watching the Watchmen? Who's protecting me out there? Nobody. I'm here all alone with my stacks of Birkin bags for my future wife that doesn't exist. I'll flip a couple of these and get to the bottom of the music industry. That's what I like.
And then he can do what he does best. Playing pickup ball with his friends. Following in the footsteps of another Canadian legend, Hooper Grimes.
Not Quentin Grimes. Not Quentin. We're not It's not an hour in, but we're not doing basketball just yet.
Well, we are doing basketball. It's just
not
just
the
a
full
different
basketball.
Different kind
not
of
the
basketball.
Full Biden basketball.
No,
Hunter Biden.
No. So Grimes. I didn't know that she was a Hooper's Hooper.
She's a spry person. She has not had the Thanksgiving week that I have had.
I mean, this said, the game of basketball does not necessarily reward the Elvin phenotype.
Elvin Hayes. That's the only one.
Rewarded his phenotype.
Yeah.
She says, as of yesterday, I've been dominating in basketball lately with the worst ever limp-wristed form everybody's been calling the fairy shot.
Wow.
I really think there may be something to just feeling the game, vibing into victory.
She's really profiting off this Jared McCain moment. But do we believe her? Like, I want to know the competition. It's like Bob Cousy was just like, you don't got the dog like me. I'm like, can we see the teams you played? Because they don't even look like plumbers. They look like people just pulled from the audience at a Rochester minor league hockey game. But like,
yeah, I get what you're saying. Like, who is Grimes putting in that sous vide bag?
Yeah.
Who is she sauteing out there?
Because you have a friend you introduced me to who I was so fascinated by, because you guys had said he practices with the Liberty. They use him in practices. You know, they have many people they hire to bring in to run drills off of, if they're the right size, the right athleticism, to simulate a game without putting their own players at risk doing these drills, you know, or 3-on-3s or 5-on-5s. And I'm like, he's kind of an excellent player, but there has to be a base level, right? It's like, you're the right size, you're the right athleticism, but can you hoop? It's like, oh, damn, you can hoop. Okay, we need to hire you to come to Barclays. But who's Grimes hooping against? That's what I want to know. Right.
So shout out to our buddy Jacob from AM Hoops. That's who you're talking about. He does tournaments. Yep. Cookies Hoops has participated in them. But yeah, his experience was they're looking for, as you said, a particular like size, skill set, and he's a college player.
Mm-hmm.
Like he can hoop. He's good. And with women's game, just as an aside, it's way different though, because if you want to find the caliber of player to go up against them, it's really hard. So they use men.
Right.
It's much easier to find men to replicate
It's great.
the size and ability of WNBA women than it is to be like, hey, we need to find some random dudes to go against our NBA guys. You're like, that just doesn't work.
The Seattle Storm isn't like, we heard Grimes can hoop, bring her in as a practice squad player. It's like, she's too small. She's an elf.
Exactly. So one thing, and this is just before we get back into the fairy shot, I know that a team like the Brooklyn Nets, for example, they intentionally hire for their coaching staff across the board. They hire lots and lots and lots of people who played D1 like pretty recently, because it's like a two for value. You get a guy who's going to be on your scouting department, but he's also a body. So you want to run drills, you want a player who's in the gym. We have a bunch of tall D1 guys who are in their 20s that you can just like, hey, put some shorts on. You're in this. We need to run over here. Way hard to do that with women, obviously.
It's sort of like, that's why you hired JJ Redick to be on your broadcast team, because he's like, I was a podcaster, so he can jump in at any point. If like I go down with a coughing fit, JJ Redick could be like, eat over the sink, sandwiches are for children.
The fairy shot.
Fair shot. So
I want to see some footage.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing.
There's the sizzle.
She's calling it limp wristed. Is she using fairy in not the Danny Fairy way, but is she using it in an effeminate, homophobic way, or is she using it in the elven way because she is kind of that Lord of the Rings ilk? That's always been her appeal.
She's gaslighting many communities at the same time, right?
That's what I'm saying.
She is,
and Danny Fairy,
the community of Danny Fairy. I think she is primarily talking about like, you're gonna let sort of the game I play. It's just like, oh, how did an ugly short man end up here in life? And you're like, oh, fuck you. She's doing that, right? She's like, oh, how is someone so non-traditionally athletic as me, who doesn't present themselves as tough or masculine at all, cook you at every game of 21?
How am I, Grimes, putting numbers on the board, flambeing the ops, twisting ankles, smacking ankles, cracking ankles,
throwing her
breaking
opponents
ankles
in basketball jail?
Or is she just talking about like a follow through?
Yeah. Did she hit a couple shots? Did she win a game of horse? Like, what is she talking about? My bad. Win a game of unicorn. More words.
I feel like I appreciate the spirit of what she's saying. I like that she's out here hooping. I like that she's talking shit. I like that her jumper is feathery.
Yo,
just wish we had a little more information.
She had children with Elon Musk. Do we trust anybody who co-signed Elon Musk for that long? I mean, I get why she had children, and with a billionaire, with the richest man alive. I don't think he's like a part of her life actively, knowing what we know about him. So she's probably, judging by how much she hoops and the domination she's admitting to on the basketball court, she's probably living a pretty good life. But is everything she says colored, shaded by the fact that she was with this man at one point, this legendary Bulls basketball player?
Well, yeah, because otherwise she has one song that people know.
She's a good artist. She's a good artist, but not a mainstream artist, right? Like, should never have really crossed over. Her records are strange.
So her idea of vibing to victory, which is really what we do on every episode of Cookies Hoops, the world's
True.
most influential basketball
Facts.
podcast, is that we vibe to victory. This idea that we're losing vibes. There was a tweet that went, not viral, but somewhat basketball-y viral, if that makes sense. It was a topic of discussion. This guy wrote a lot. Some dude named Zig. I guess he's kind of Republican. I don't know.
Zigzagging here.
He has a business podcast and an American flag. He's a Air Force vet entrepreneur. You already get it.
He loves Michael Jordan.
So he has it had 86,000 likes on this tweet. So I guess that is viral. That wasn't just basketball viral. Anyway, I'm not going to read the whole thing. He makes a couple points early on about how basketball has become a upper middle class and rich person sport. This is something that we talked about in the book, The Joy of Basketball. This is not new. We get into it more about Nepo babies and training. So he talks about the cost of entry. This is one point I wanted to talk to you about. It says, today, if a kid isn't getting trained year-round, they have almost no chance of making the NBA, and the average American parent doesn't have the funds or time to invest into development. Andrew, comment.
There's many whistles, some dog whistles with the W, some economic whistles. But when I read that tweet, it made me think of the conversation we had about culture, like music, movies, streamers. There is such a higher floor now with technology. You can't just have a good idea. You have to be proficient at Photoshop, streaming, editing, InDesign. It's you can't make your own clothes. You have to be able to professionalize it. And or punk bands have talented musicians fronting them who can sing on key with guitars that work and amplifiers that don't explode every time you plug them in. And I think the state of sports is no different. The floor is so much higher with science, technology, and math that the expectations have become somewhat out of reach for someone without certain resources. And we can ignore those people because there's a plethora of incoming talent to supply the demand. But this person, whether he's racist or not, is kind of talking about...
This is a black guy, so I'm not accusing him of racism. I'm just saying that his political ideology may be more libertarian, right wing. Right. Look, I agree with the premise that the NBA is increasingly becoming a rich person sport, rich kid sport, Nepo baby sport.
Like tennis, gymnastics,
the evidence is
football.
The evidence is there.
Yeah.
We see it. And in basketball, it is clearly going to be a huge part of the game and already is, especially you look at someone like Zion Williamson, right? It's his parents may not have been in the NBA, but they were incredible athletes. And this is just how it's going to go. And it happened before we even really knew it was happening. Here's Kobe. Here's
right?
It's here's Kobe, here's Kyrie, here's Ben Simmons. I just mean these are kids whose parents went overseas who are American, went overseas to play basketball, had kids, and voila.
LeBron was an outlier.
Elite.
Yeah.
Right. And so to me, this has always been the case. It's just becoming more and more pronounced. Second point goes to what we were talking about the other day with the bar to entry for small guys. Because that's where you have to be so good at all this stuff. And we were talking about Jared McCain and how it's harder to recognize basketball genius in them. But that's because it's also so much harder to make the league as a 6'2" guy. Because 6'7", 6'8" is just an anomaly. And these same principles apply about Nepo babies and stable households and having an economic foundation that allows someone who's 6'8" to not slip through the cracks, to get recognized, to be in the right situation, to not get caught up in stuff. That doesn't happen the way that it used to. Now it's we're recognizing this. Not that many players slip through the cracks anymore, but that's also because the players who are in position to succeed have more stability in their backgrounds, whether that's parents who are willing to drive them to practice, people who have economic stability from being a former professional athlete or having good jobs. Like that's just part of this and part of everything in America. I mean, that's just how it works. If you take the people who are at the highest levels, most of them come from stable backgrounds. Most of them come from more money. Oh, you're the executive editor of the local broadsheet. Yeah, my dad's a billionaire. Like, really, really seems to help, whether it's the money or the access or the safety net and so forth. So I think that is true. However, he makes it seem as if making the NBA is a real dream that is accessible to everyone and now is less accessible because of wealth. Making the NBA is not a dream for anyone. It is a 0% chance of that happening. It is 0. Yes, the NBA exists. Yes, people are in it. Yes, they came from somewhere. But your chance is 0. You aren't going to the NBA. It's not happening. Now, that doesn't mean you can't still use basketball to go to college, to play overseas, to use it to further your life. And I think that would have been a better point if he had made that. He said, rich kids are using basketball who may not need it because they have this advantage in a way that traditionally players that he named later, kids who came from a rougher economic background, kids who didn't have those opportunities now aren't as good because they didn't have that opportunities, but they may have needed it more. That would have been an interesting point to me. But the idea that like, wow, only these certain kids are now able to go to the NBA, dude, it's not an option. No one's going to the NBA. Your odds are mathematically 0.
It makes me think of like colleges and affirmative action and where you enter the conversation, sort of like karma. It's like, well, I entered here, therefore this is injustice. And like, I think some person who might tweet that might say, Princeton doesn't look like it's an equal opportunity for everybody. And it looks like it's primarily for people who are online to do this and who end up being the Zuckerbergs and the Peter Thiels and the Elon Musks of the world. To your point, 0 chance you're going to be one of these 10 billionaires, right? But the opportunity is important because it is not only the American dream, it is like a fundamental human right to think that you will be one of these people to do this thing. And on another hand, it is like, well, let's say you enter at a different point in this karmic debate, and Princeton looks not white to maybe where he's going in the opposite way, being like, there's too many Europeans here. Like, there's too many rich kids here. Where are the Iversons? Where are the Stackhouses? Where are the dream All American McDonald's high school players? Where are they? Why do they all look like Cooper Flag now? You know, and the the population of the NBA has been kind of the main story of the NBA for the last 2 decades. Like, who is occupying these sacred seats in this living room in Bed-Stuy? And it's like the distillation of the best players from Africa, Eastern Europe, China, France is like creating a pretty fierce degree of competition to get into this league. And to get into this league, to your point, you can't just be kind of nice. The level of competition is high.
Yeah, and there's also the genetic scarcity of certain positions.
Right.
Hey, we're going to need some people who are 6'10". Like, what percentage of the population is that? Oh, there's none of them. But we got to get some. Like, every team needs a bunch of guys who are like 6'10" and up. How many of them are floating around? I don't know, like 10.
Right.
Just go get them, whoever they are. Need them.
It's a great point, right? Because I'm not even, when I said seats at this table, I'm not talking about an entire roster. If you're Cooper Flag's fraternal twin brother, you're just like, I'm not competing for a spot. I'm competing against forwards because you're going to have to roster 3 centers. And I'm not a point guard. So there's 3 point guards there. It starts like narrowing very quickly.
Right. So you think there's, let's say, 450 guys in the NBA, more or less. Like, all right, well, 2/3 of them have to be 6'5" and up.
Yeah.
So if you're 6'2" and you're making the NBA, you're goddamn right those guys are growing up with trainers.
Yeah. Right.
But the barrier's too high. But yeah, I think making it about this dream is being cut off is just it was always cut off.
Right.
It was always cut off. But if you had made it about access to higher education, to opportunities, to use the game to go forward, that would have been more valid. And, you know, I think of like when I've been working on projects out in Chicago and in like Compton at going to youth centers and basketball, this is a real thing. You know, it's very real. Like it is a phrase that you hear over and over. You hear, use the game, don't let the game use you.
For sure. I've heard that.
And it is like, this is use this game to get to college. And if you go there and you quit, cool. Just use it to get an education, use it to, you know, escape this environment, which is tricky to escape.
There was a
And
New York Times magazine cover story about this.
If he had used this idea, I think that would have been a stronger point.
Yeah.
Then he obscures it further, though, and this is where I wanted to go with this when I said vibing to victory. He then says, after this part, that the league is changing. He said that historically, players that came from low-income backgrounds is what made the NBA because they played with a flair, passion, and hunger that comes from not having much. He gave a bunch of examples. You named some of them: D. Rose, Iverson, Isaiah, Westbrook, LeBron,
Shaquille O'Neal.
And then he says, today's NBA is filled with mostly players that come from upper middle class or foreigners. That's why it seems uncompetitive and passionless.
He's a Julius Randle
Andrew.
fan. I know one when I see one. He loves Julius Randle, who fucking hates losing more than anybody. So much so that he wears it in his shoulders, right? And like, not to get into Randle yet, but like, this is a complaint people have generationally. It's the dog thing, right? It's like, I used to walk 14 miles in the snow to catch a bus to go to school. I had 4 jobs just to put an 11-course meal in my bedside apartment. Like, it is this American story and cliche and trap about hard work. You need to suffer in order to achieve. Where the people who actually achieve don't even suffer that much, right? Like, I'm not sure Jeff Bezos has a suffering. Our president, Donald Trump, tries to manufacture that story, but it doesn't quite match up. So he's talking about...
Right. Grievance and suffering, they can intertwine, but not necessarily the same dog.
Yes, exactly. And, you know, this goes into the conversation we've had before about ethical basketball and people cheating the moral requirements to play the game the right way. It's like, stop shooting threes. It's not right with a capital R, you know? And if you don't play without passion and you're Jared McCain dancing in locker rooms and losing with a smile on your face, you have offended my moral compass.
It's funny that guys like Dirk are viewed as, of course, the paragon of ethical basketball, right? Because the mid-range guy is a winner, champion. And the mid-range shot itself is viewed as the lost art. This has been going on for a while. I was watching last night. I was watching the Spurs playing against the Kings. Pretty fun game.
Wemby.
Yeah, had a triple-double. Good, fun game, though. A lot of like missed layups, a lot of blocks, a lot of turnovers. It was sloppy. And like on 3 occasions, their broadcasting team, who is good. Sacramento's got a really good broadcasting team. I'm not shitting on them. Brought up like, well, Wemby shooting threes, like it's a different game. Like, Stop.
Mm-hmm.
Stop with it. It's a different game now. Stop. Just talk about why.
Mm-hmm.
Like, talk about why Wemby and Sabonis are shooting threes. Say why. Don't say the game is different now. Everyone fucking knows, man. Who are you telling this to? Someone just tuning into the Sacramento Kings game like, what? 3-pointers? We all know. You've been saying this thing about the game is different now for 15 years. Like, just stop saying it. Stop telling people the game is different.
Right. I mean,
but no, I'm saying, say why.
Yeah.
Say the value of Wemby shooting threes is that he spaces the floor. He's a really good shooter, better than he seemed early on. He's improved a lot. He can really shoot. And he'll always be back on defense. Like, give us the reason instead of saying the game has changed.
Grievance is connoisseurship, right? When people are talking about a game happening in real time, inside the NBA, broadcasters in small markets, big markets, to have a small grievance is expertise. And I always blame inside the NBA for this. They're just like, this is trash. I didn't even watch it. And they're like, oh yeah, because Barkley is ethical. Like, this doesn't hold up to his standards, right? There was some writer, I think, who put together a little snippet of a Lakers game where it was like back and forth, threes, brick, like three attempts in a row, brick. And he was like, this is why people aren't watching the NBA. But to your point, I thought people aren't watching the NBA because the people who are supposed to show us joy are not doing so. They're not doing their job. They're not like LeBron James has turned into Jason Kidd, a Hall of Fame player of a different type. And he's a decent shooter, but providing evidence that he's not successful 100% of the time is misleading. And the people who are supposed to create stories out of this stuff are not doing their job.
I think it was easier back in the day when people were watching 1 or 2 games a week. You know, you were watching the weekend game. If you were a big fan, maybe you're in a major market, you're watching the Knicks, you're watching Chicago, but the national game, far less content required to tell stories. Super cliche phrase, storytelling. We've been discussing it as a kind of as a joke. But back then, you could do that. You could present to the audience, here's why this game is important. Here's the story of Clyde Drexler or whoever. Hard to do that when you're doing 82 games. No doubt about it.
With the internet.
But just harder to craft that narrative.
Yeah.
Also be cool if they tried.
Yeah, instead do your job.
All right, here they are. Games change, blah, blah, blah. No. Let's talk about this. What's going on? What's the story? Why should we care about the Spurs against Sacramento? And to me, if we're going to say, why don't people care about this individual game? I'm like, well, right, because there's 82 of them. But still, you can do your best. It's the job, man.
This is our debate about our last episode. It's like critics being like, there's too much art and all of it sucks. I'm like, then do your fucking job and pick out some artists you like and talk about them. Like, I remember when I started doing music reviews at the New York Times, a senior writer gave me such great advice. They were just like, you're obviously here because you love music. Just do the stuff you like. There's too much out there. Don't do stuff you don't like. You know, like if you don't like an album, don't talk about it. Gravitate towards the joy, and then your job will make more sense. And I agree. I took that into every part of my life. And the NBA is lacking a certain star power right now. We're waiting for younger players to step into these roles that we crave. And LeBron is getting a bit older, and the old guard, Steph Curry, is kind of aging out. This is a weird Kenji Lopez alt in Seattle time for the NBA. But there's also really cool shit. Like, okay, Kenji, the 15th teriyaki restaurant. Tell me all about it. He's like, it's kind of sweet, but it's teriyaki, you know? Do that for us.
It just feels as if a lot of these critiques are vibing to victory. I saw someone say, and this has been said so many times, we're talking about LL Cool J. LL Cool J became a topic du jour just because that's how it happens. Some people started being like, hey, this guy was really underappreciated. He had a really long, really popular career. He came out as the first real solo rap star.
Invented the phrase GOAT.
He was there during the formative years of rap with Def Jam. He's had this. He's underappreciated. We got to start talking about this guy as one of the greatest of all time. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. That's cool.
Yeah,
fine.
do you think?
Like, we want to just give LL his flowers? Great.
Yeah.
No issues with that. And then I saw someone comment like, I've never been at a party and they said throw on some LL Cool J. And I was like, well, that's probably true. You're not lying. You're not wrong. You have probably never been at a party where they said throw on some LL Cool J. Like, you are telling the truth. You aren't like that capper Joe Biden. You are telling the truth. Yeah. You have not been at a party where they said throw on some LL Cool J. You're also probably like 25.
Yeah, right.
It's like, so my thing is, what do you think LL was doing? I just mean, generally speaking, what's your perception of LL Cool J? Are you like suggesting that he wasn't making a bunch of songs for girls, songs for parties, songs for clubs, songs for dancing? Like, what do you think he was? And this is kind of just bringing this step back to basketball. It's like, well, what do you think they're doing out there on the court? Well, there's no defense today. You don't think they're playing defense? Well, I don't really watch it. I don't really pay attention. But I'll tell you why I don't pay attention anymore. Because they shoot a bunch of threes. I'm like, okay, so we're just doing this like I'm not there, but I'm dissatisfied by it.
All right.
I don't watch it anymore, and I'll tell you why. But you don't watch it.
No. And listen, contrarianism is how shit evolves and gets done, right? Skepticism is jokes. It leads to better shit. It leads to different thoughts, discussions. I'm all for it. But at this point, parroting Shaquille O'Neal and Charles Barkley being like, this is not my beautiful NBA, is no longer contrarianism. It is just grievance. And to your point, I don't want to be at a party where someone's like, listen, enough of this drill. Can I hear the Black Eyed Peas? And I'm like, fuck, I know what you're doing, but no, we're not dropping the R bomb in this party tonight. And like, not all contrarianism is created equal, right? So some of it is interesting and some of it isn't. But when someone shows me footage of a missed 3-point shot in the NBA, to your exact point, tell me more. Why was that a bad shot as opposed to a made 3-point shot?
The thing is, all grievances aren't incorrect.
Yeah.
Right. You can be right. There can be things that should be changed.
Always.
And, to me, without getting into like the problems of the game, grievance of our own, I think making it more difficult for ISO players to succeed because the skill level is so high for these guys who offenses are driven through. Like, here's the ball. We're going to space the court. Really hard to guard those guys one-on-one. To me, it's not change the 3-point line, do all this other thing. Allow guys to play defense and make it tougher for guys to score and break down a defense, which then leads to rotations, which leads to open threes, because open threes are boring. You're
speaking of accountability.
I'm just saying,
right?
I just mean when people say the modern game sucks, I'm like, well, it's because you don't like watching open threes,
right? You're speaking to,
which to me aren't fun to watch necessarily either. I sort of agree with that. Watching open threes, catch and shoot, are probably the worst plays in basketball in terms of just watching. It's a dude standing there catching the ball and shooting a three. It goes in or misses, sure, has a big impact on the game. It makes the play successful, not engrossing to watch. If you want to make those plays occur less, step back threes, fun. Pull up threes with a defender charging at them, fun. I don't mind those. Catch and shoot, not fun.
I kind of like them. It's like a field goal kick, Scott Norwood. But yeah, to your point, You're discussing probably the least American idea, which is philosophical, theoretical, and take accountability. It's like, I have this idea, I have this action on the court that I think through. And then people are like, well, then it has to be attacked, it has to be replicated, it has to be somewhat kind of reasonably successful in theory or execution. This is just watching a game, but it's easier just to say, this is trash. It's unwatchable. I can't do it. Or it's like, I don't like that play. I love a catch and shoot three because there's like a, you better hit this. Or there's a level of disrespect there, being like, if I hit an open three, it's deeply disrespectful to the defense, you know? I love it.
True. And also, I think one thing is that there are roughly about the same number of catch and shoot shots as there were 10 years ago.
Mhm.
I went through and looked, like proportionally.
Yeah.
There's more possessions in the game now. So
Right.
there are mathematically more,
Or percentage.
but it's about the same.
Right.
Yeah. And I forget what it was. It was something like 16%, 20%, whatever it was. It was not an overwhelming amount. They're just all threes now.
Yeah.
So my thing is, well, if you don't like those kind of shots, you can't really eliminate them. They're going to be a part of the game. It was just a 16-footer before, and now it's a 24-footer. They're going to be part of basketball. If you want to create less of them, you're just going to have to make it harder to defend. But, like, I don't have a real issue with it. I'm just saying you don't need to move the line around. You don't need to readjust the entire dimension of the court because now all catch and shoot shots are threes when they used to be more mid-range.
What do you think about Habistro being like, dunk should be worth 3 points?
Should be worth 5.
But then you get a bunch of
More
trash,
jams, the better.
You got a bunch of trash players just diving at the rim, trying to like draw fouls, and which is fun also, but like there will be grievance towards that too. What about 360
I mean,
dunks
I'm
are worth 7?
7. Yes. Reverses 6.
Pump between the legs like Steve Francis.
15 for like an East Bay.
If you
Yeah.
break the glass, you're automatically in the Hall of Fame.
And your team wins the championship.
Yes. Call the season over at that point. If you shatter the glass,
It's over.
It's over.
So every team's just going
Trying
to try
to
to
shut
get
it.
like a morbidly obese man that they can hoist up on the rim, and
Hang
he'll
on
just
that rim.
dangle from it
Yeah.
until it bends and shatters. Yeah, that's the sport I want to see.
I mean, some would say the crack was there to start with. Drake, get your lawyers on this.
So you were talking a little bit about your boy Julius Randle. We've discussed him a lot because he is this weird synthesis of vibes, discontent.
Mhm.
He is a very eye of the beholder player. And when he was on the Knicks, he was, let's say, 2-time All NBA.
Yeah.
And yet was always seen as a problem. You know, along with firing Thibs, trading Randle was always the solution to whatever ailed the Knicks. And they did it. They traded him in a blockbuster deal. They brought in Karl Anthony Towns, who has an amazing t-shirt in the Cookies Hoops shop. I guess today is the last day of our 20% off sale.
No, it
Buried
was
the
yesterday,
lead here.
but maybe Cyber Monday.
Cyber Monday.
Okay.
Cyber Monday.
All right.
Yeah. Well, it's continuing, boys.
Yeah.
Cyber Monday. But Julius Randle, as I said, an eye of beholder player. And now we're seeing that same kind of, how do you describe it? The vibes doctor. The I'm seeing something is off here. Julius Randle threw a pass to Gobert, and his shoulders appeared to dip by
Go
inches.
fumbles it. Doesn't matter. The game's over.
Indicating discontent. Something's wrong. Let's talk, Andrew, as a Knicks expert who's seen the Randle experience from nose to tail, and now it's being replicated here in Minnesota.
I mean, my favorite is being accused of being anti-Nick and negative towards my own team because I was like, don't trade Julius Randle. He's kind of good, if not very good. Don't fire Tibbs. He has success. And me skeptical of Mikal Bridges. It's like, so anti-Nick. I'm like, listen, I don't. We rode with other guys first, but I've always liked Randall because I think he unfairly receives criticism that reminds me of the Ben Simmons chatter when the fans turned on him kind of early on. There's certain players that kind of are like magnetize all these small trying to find another word for grievance, right? Like irritations that fan bases have about time, about losing, about effort, about the cost of tickets, about not being able to see your team because of a paywall. And then it's Julius Randle not being grateful enough to have this opportunity to excel. And if I was his size and if I had his skill set, I wouldn't be sulking on the court. I wouldn't be pouting. I wouldn't be fighting with my teammates. From all reports in New York, he was a beloved teammate. They liked him a lot. He got mad when they lost and emotional, which is, I thought, what Grill Masters wanted because Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant kind of made this a signature move of theirs. Um, and Randall had enough success where I thought he was an overachieving third tier player who was paid like a third tier player. So if you're hanging your hat on Julius Randle's body language, which is such a loaded idea to me, then I'm like, you're looking at the wrong thing always. You're looking for something that isn't there. The failures of the Timberwolves is just a talent issue. They had to get out from Cat's contract in order to retain Nas Reed. The combination of Nas Reed and Julius Randle is not better than Karl Anthony Towns, who became too expensive.
Quick point about the Timberwolves. A lot of this is happening because Mike Conley isn't there, and they also lost Kyle Anderson. The brainstem of that team got removed. What you're looking at right now is a team that has a lot of quality flailing parts. Oh, that's a good arm. That's a good leg. That's a Hunter Biden swinging dong. But they aren't brought together because that team doesn't have a genius basketball player. And now it doesn't even have a particularly smart one. DiVincenzo and Ant, they're not like dumb players, but you can't necessarily run a team through either of them as like the central operating device. And, we talked a little bit about Golden State in the preview. Golden State is clearly a team that treasures basketball IQ. And whether that works out or not, they go out and they get guys like Kyle Anderson and Dario Saric and, veterans who know how to play the game. Even if they aren't great.
Right.
They want smart guys because they know the value because they've seen what Draymond and Steph can do. Mm-hmm. When you have guys that are that smart, you just have a lot more leeway. Mm-hmm. And that's, I think, in some cases, what's happened with the Timberwolves. It's not that Randle is a dumb player, but they just don't have a unified system to make this work. It is a bunch of guys who do their things. And when Ant's saying, I feel like we're playing like a bunch of children out there, it's like, well, you guys kind of are.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of dudes who are doing their own thing, and you don't have like a structure. And there's certain things that you can teach players, and you can create systems in which they will succeed. And it's not like the Timberwolves are an awful team. They aren't as good as they were last year. But you don't have Mike Conley and you don't have Kyle Anderson, and this is just sort of a consequence of it. So I think in some ways, to the point you made earlier, Randle is going to be blamed for this stuff because we're not going to blame Ant because Ant's cool. DiVincenzo we like because he's a Nick and an Italian. Mm-hmm. Randle, here we are, my old friend, averaging 21-7, 4 assists, career high in true shooting percentage, career high in free throws, shooting pretty well from three, which is not something he did well last year. I saw your shoulders slump, sir.
No. And even
you have fucked up the vibes.
Even smart people are like, he was a cancer in New York, he was a cancer in New Orleans, he was a cancer in LA, and now what do you expect happening in Minnesota? I'm like, all those teams had talent issues. Like he was with AD, and that was kind of a good tandem in New Orleans. But like his Lakers run, they were rebuilding with a bunch of like D'Lo first year rookie stuff. Um,
Like, I mean, it
Mo
was like the
Wagner,
end of the Mamba, but it was also like Kobe, like,
the biggest
you know,
destructive presence I can think of, right? And he,
but retirement, it was retirement
yes,
tour Kobe.
yes, and the way we pick villains is amazing because Anthony Edwards talks the most shit, doesn't isn't accountable, thankfully, doesn't have to be. Is a guy who smiles through defeat, but is a classically handsome basketball player in the vein of Michael Jordan. Everyone's just like, oh my god, he's a facsimile. Anthony Edwards is a top 25 player. He's really good. To your point, that could be your alpha if you had an operating system. If the team, the offense and defense, behaved in a way where these players, where these arms and limbs could kind of form a human body or a spider or an octopus, like, but they're lacking that. Not only is Conley hurt, he's old. Carl Anthony Towns does things on offense that gives you an opportunity to be a genius because he's so good at spacing. When you lose all that and don't play Nas Reed, like, hey man, they're trying to stay out of the apron. And that is just, sadly, the story of the Wolves is about money. It's not about aura.
Yeah, I mean, and also their offense wasn't that good last year either. It's basically the same, you know. I mean, there's always talk about offense, always, right? Every time, if a team's offense is, if a team is losing, we talk about the personalities in the offense. Hey man, it was 19th this year so far. It's 16th last year.
Yeah.
We're talking about whatever.
Yeah.
You know, the slump has come on the defensive side. So we can unpack that however we want. And Randle is certainly not a great defensive player. And, you know, but it's not about his attitude. It's not about sulking. It's not about him and Gobert having this feud or Ant not. No, the offense wasn't good. Last year, the offense was absolutely mediocre. It's mediocre right now. It's the defense is slumped. And that's a different conversation. My thing with Randle is that you made a great point about him a few years back, and it always has stuck with me, that he's not supposed to be a star. Right. So when we talk about these flaws within his game, yeah, they are. They are absolutely flaws within his game. He holds the ball too long. He doesn't have great defensive timing, so it looks like he's loafing. He doesn't really know where to go, so he can't close out, and people look at him and say, like, oh, he's not trying out there.
His passes are
Randle tries really fucking hard.
Yes.
He tries really hard. He is a hugely effortful player.
Yes.
He just sometimes doesn't know where to go, so he's slow getting there. And once he starts going and realizes that there's no point, everyone says, look at this guy. Doesn't even want to close out over there, right. This dude. But your point is true. This guy made All-NBA twice. He was never supposed to be a star. He turned himself into one. He can do some stuff on the court. He's not Karl Anthony Towns. Karl Anthony Towns is one of the greatest offensive weapons in the NBA and has been for a decade. Mm-hmm. Randle isn't. He's a good player who does it by more or less the force of will. So the irony of him being accused of not trying is a little unfair.
And he takes that criticism because he wears his emotions clearly, front facing, right?
Which is what we want, right?
I know. I thought this is what everyone wanted. When you lose, like, I cannot be mad at Jaron McCain for smiling through defeat in the Dwight Howard style and be mad at Julius Randle for being upset at the hands of defeat. Like,
I'm also extremely mad at Ben Simmons' impassivity.
Right.
I'm just mad at all of it. I don't like the smiling. Yeah. I don't like the frowning. I don't like the expressionless thing either.
Yeah. And it always comes...
Tim Duncan, boring. Yeah.
And it always comes down to, like, well, did they win a championship? Because then the mechanisms at hand aren't working. And I'm like, well, what about all the seasons that Michael Jordan lost? Were his mannerisms bad then and good when they added Scottie Pippen and Elon Musk, which is like a combination of Tony Kukoc and Jed Bushler?
Like, is that Bill Wennington? Oh no, it's Elon Musk.
But I'm not sure what we're angry at with Julius Randle. We're angry that he isn't better. And I think that is a legitimate thing, being like, oh, I want him to be more perfect. And I'm like, me too. He's just not. So everything else is just a projection of that desire, being like, I want him to be excellent. I want him to be Carl Anthony Towns, and he never will be.
Julius Randle may not be perfect, but you know what is? The Memphis Grizzlies.
Oh,
the Memphis Grizzlies are
you
perfect.
had me. Woo!
Yep. The Grizzlies currently are 14-7, but they are having they have the makeup of a real contender. And there was a list that someone put together recently, and they said that overwhelmingly, you kind of got to be top 7 in both offense and defense to win a title.
Yep.
You got to be there.
Mm-hmm.
There are some anomalies where teams have injured players all year, or they make changes like the Dallas Mavericks did last year that, affect them in the playoffs that maybe were not there during the whole season. But as a rule of thumb, if you want to find someone and say, this person's a pretender, you would look at the offense. And a team like Houston right now, who has an amazing defense. And for all these people who say the modern NBA is this and that, just go watch Houston play. Go watch Orlando play. Get your rocks off watching these dogs run around and
Channel
make
Hunter
life miserable.
Biden and watch the Houston Rockets.
Exactly. So the Rockets, though, their offense is probably not good enough to win a title. That's just how it is. And it may improve. They may make moves. But as it is right now,
Jalen Green. Yeah.
Grizzlies, though, your Memphis Grizzlies have motion. They are currently, it's written somewhere in my notes here, 5th offensive and 4th defensive. So
that's real.
Top 5 in both. And they've done this with John Morant missing time, with Bane missing time. They've done it on both sides of the ball. Grizz, legit contender?
Yeah, for sure. Ja has to just stay healthy, but losing Ja last year was a tough pill to swallow for fans of the Grizzlies in Memphis and out of it. But it was a way for the team to work on stuff, work on roles, work on their operating system, draft Zach Edey. The courage to draft a partially Asian person is off the charts. That's a whole other perfect pod. But they fortified their roster not only with the addition of a 7-footer who looks like he could play, he's hurt now, but also like figuring out what they were doing. So when Ja came back, they just started clicking a little bit. And Ja's not a perfect player. He's like Edwards. So fun, so flashy, so interesting. But they're not top dogs. But this team together has enough of a point of view where would you be surprised if they got to the conference finals?
No, I would not necessarily at this point put them in the same category as a healthy OKC.
Nope.
In the West. I think that's head and shoulders the best team.
Mm-hmm.
After that, I think it could be them. I mean, also Zach Edey, a guy that they got in the lottery because they were bad last year. He's been hurt a lot too. So, or more lately, and he hasn't played.
Bane just came back. Bane's working it out. But like Jaren Jackson Jr. became his own player in the absence of John Morant, right? And like Brandon Clark got a year. Certain things just worked out. I'm not saying this is a formula, but certain things kind of worked out serendipitously with the Grizzlies. And Scottie Pippen Jr. being like an extremely serviceable rotation player / backup. Like, you don't quite plan for Santi Aldama, but both those guys, good players.
Well, someone like, you know, Jake LaRavia, this was not someone who was probably predicted to be a key part of the rotation, but he's good. He's just good. I mean, he has been really good defensively. He's been an efficient scorer, and they have a whole bunch of those guys, as you said. You know, Santi Aldama, they've been good.
I mean, Marcus Smart
Jalen Wells
doesn't hurt them.
good.
Right.
Marcus Smart's barely played too. Marcus Smart has played like 200 minutes.
Yeah, and to resist just going through the roster, because I'm looking at it and I like everybody here.
Yeah, I was just like, look at them all. Look at all these guys. Jay Huff, like him.
I think they have successfully done the work in the margins that the Knicks team did last year, where they're interesting because they have their givens. If you have Bane, Morant, and Jaren Jackson Jr., you're doing everything to give them all the shots, all the opportunities, all the money. Just keep those guys. And then the work has to be done elsewhere. These are a lot of good picks. These are a lot of like savvy Moneyball kind of ideas, like taking on an old veteran like Marcus Smart and maybe getting flawed prospects like Scottie Pippen Jr. or Brandon Clark, and them just doing the stuff they do well. A deeply unsexy team. I feel like the brand of Ja Morant took a real hit with certain people. The gun stuff, people didn't find as funny as maybe I did Hunter Biden's gun stuff, but like he is kind of soured as like this poster child of the league, where Edwards has not. But Ja has flaws in his game. He's not much of a basketball genius or a threat from distance. But god damn, man, he's had some highlights this year that are fun, and the team likes him.
I mean, he can really pass. I mean, he may not be a basketball genius in the LeBron sense, but he is absolutely a facilitator.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think he orchestrates the court as well as some other players do. But he's awesome. I don't know. It's hard for me to talk about the Grizzlies without just being like, I like this player, I like this player, I like this player. They have the grit and grind DNA coursing through that arena. So like they are a good defensive team. Jaren Jackson Jr. is one of my favorite players. But yeah, the West is strange, right? Like it's much better than the East, but I don't think there's many top contenders there, and they're one of them.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I just view like we kind of know who the contenders are right now, and I think Memphis emerging.
Yep. Yeah. New to it. Yeah.
One that is in there in that group, in my opinion, more so than Houston. Even though I like Houston's emergence too because they're mean. Yeah. I like Houston.
Too many knuckleheads.
They're a cool team.
Yeah.
I love their wildly athletic, defensive, clamp down wings. I think they have really cool groups of players. Yeah. I mean, Tari and Aman, awesome. Like they built a type of team, whether it's either by accident or not, that does go with their coach. They have an aesthetic. Mm-hmm. That's a team with a worldview. Mm-hmm. I like that quite a bit. And yeah, I'm glad that Memphis, as I think, I'm not even saying we were like really predicted this, but we were saying that if Ja's healthy, Memphis will be good. Mm-hmm. I didn't know they would be like 13, 14 players deep good, though.
Scottie Pippen Jr. kind of emerged last year, but kind of a revelation. You don't really lose that much depending on matchup, but we'll see.
Well, a point that you made, sorry to cut you off, that you made, when you take a year and you don't care, and you just use it for player development, all of a sudden, hey, look, Jake LaRavia can play, Scottie Pippen Jr. can play, or whoever. You haven't, you give guys a chance, and then you can use them later on.
Yeah. And The tragedy of that draft of Zion and Morant, like so tantalizing, but they cannot stay on the court, is hard to forget when we're talking about what might happen later in the season. Morant playing enough games and being healthy down the stretch is like, I don't expect it, but it would be nice. It would be nice to see Morant in a huge series. I think he's one of those players, like Julius Randle, has a real dog to him. He's an entertainer of the highest order, so his health is a lot. A Scottie Pippen Jr. led Grizzlies team is deeply not flashy, but not much of a fall off.
You know what never falls off, Andrew?
Is this? Oh, I'm waiting for a Hunter Biden segue. Is this going to be the 5-hour pod?
No, it's Cookies Hoops.
A classic, perfect cookies.
That's the answer.
Cookies.
Cookies.
I love cookies. I love cookies.